allocation of frames and thrashing. The first concept what I'm going to teach is allocation of frames. Now, the point is the first question you can see, how do we allocate the fixed amount of free memory among the various processes? Now, there are 10 to 15 processes in the system which is going to run. How the OS is going to manage, how the OS is going to allocate the free frames which is available in the system to those memory or to those works or to those processes who need some memory there. For example, now I've given, now we have 93 free frames. So there are 93 slots, right, which is free to work on. And there are two processes which are working. Now, how do we allocate the 93 free frames to this? Yeah, so now how do we allocate this 93 free frames to those two processes? Now, what is happening? Consider user system which has 128 KB of memory. So we have 128 KB of memory. Each page is of 1 KB size. So we have system with 128 KB, right? So each page is of 1 KB, means we have 128 frames, right? Now there are two processes, right? So now what is happening? The OS takes the 35 KB, right? It might be for memory allocation, for page fault, page references, memory references. It will take few KB of frames, right? Which is required for CPU utilization, right? So leaving 93 frames for the user process. So 93 is left out for those two processes, right? Now, there are three steps we have to discuss here. When a user process starts the process, when the user list is exhausted, when the process is terminated, what will happen with those 93 frames, right? The first one is when a user process starts execution, what will happen? So once an execution is happening, it may generate a fault, or it may happen there will be an error in the execution. So this 93 free frames which is there, it will be allocated for those sequence of page faults. So that is the first step. When a user process starts execution, there may be some error. So for error handling, we should keep one frame. So for one error, since it is of 1 KB in size, one page, so one frame, one memory we will keep. That is first step. Second one, when list is exhausted, means a page replacement algorithm should be selected. Means when we have all the 93 free frames, that is we call it as, we keep all those 93 in free memory list or free frames list. So if all this free frames is exhausted, means it is gone. All the 93 free frames are utilized by the system. Then what should happen? We should use a replacement algorithm, right, which we have discussed in the previous classes, and it should be replaced with the next one, right? The first step is during execution, for one either one page will be given. Now if all the pages is gone, right, means the free frame list, 93 free frames, as of the example, 93 free frames will be in the list. Now the list is exhausted, means all the frames are used. So now what we should use a replacement algorithm, right, to select the next free frame list. Next, when a process is terminated, means whether it has utilized all the 93 or not, whether it is executing or not, we are not worrying. If it is terminating, right, means all the 93 frames which are allocated to that will be taken and again will be put it in back to the free frame list, right? So three steps again I'll repeat. The first one is when it executes, one page, one frame will be allocated for the handling of page faults. If it is exhausting, we'll use a replacement algorithm to select one next free frame. If it terminates, means if it is not using any of those. So whichever is allocated, all those will be taken back from the list and it will be given to that free frame list, right? So three steps will be there. So I'll repeat the three steps when we are going to do allocation of frames, right? Now 93 free frames are in the list called as free frame list. So that will be there, right? It is a dashboard where we keep all those 93 free frames which is there. Now first, when user executes the program, what will happen? once we execute a program, an error may generate, right? So it will generate a sequence of page faults. For every page fault, we should assign one frame, or it depends on the memory of that page fault, right? The first step, execution, we should assign one. The second one, when the free frame list is exhausted, so it should be replaced with the new frames by using some replacement algorithms. How we will do that, we will see next. Third step, when the process which is working, it's completed its job or it is not completed, it is willing to terminate, it doesn't want to continue its execution. At that time, what will happen, all those 93 frames which were allocated to that, it will be taken out and it will be kept back in the dashboard, that is free frame list. So that is a basic introduction of allocation of frames. Now, is it compulsory we should allocate a minimum number of frames or not? Whether allocation is possible or not, we should see how is this frame allocation done. How is that minimum number of frames required for a process? How is that maximum number of process required for a process is defined, right? So we have two things. The frames required, the minimum frames required for any process will be defined by computer architecture. The maximum frames required for any process will be defined by physical memory, right? So it is very compulsory that a minimum number of frames at least should be available for the system to work, or else you can't expect any performance, or you can't expect the CPU to work on it. So CPU utilization should be on, means you should make sure at least minimum number of frames is allocated to that particular process, right? And very important, see, allocation can be done, right? How much allocation can be done? Only the minimum or the allocated numbers. See, now the first point what I have written, allocation is not possible more than total number of available frames. It is simple now. I have 100 rupees now, right? I can divide only 100 rupees among the people. I can't divide 101 among the people, because I can do allocation or I can do resource sharing only with available frames or available resources. I can't do more than that. That is the meaning of the first point what I have written. Allocation is not possible more than total number of available frames, right? So the next point tells you should have minimum number of frames for continuing some operation. You should expect some performance from the system. There should be some minimum number of free frames in the dashboard, that is free frame list. The next point tells how the system is defined, the minimum number and maximum number of frames required, right? So minimum number of frames required for any process will be defined by the computer architecture. The maximum will be defined by the physical memory of that particular process which is requiring the resources. Now, so next concept is how do we do allocation? We have two algorithms. The first one is equal algorithm, or we call it as equal allocation algorithm, and the second one is proportional allocation algorithm. So first we will discuss the first one, equal allocation algorithm. The word tells equal allocation. So if there are 5 processes in the system, if there are 10 frames in the system, everybody will get 2 each, right? Means equal distribution is done. I have 100 apples with me, there are 10 students there. So what I'll do, I will not see how much is required for a person there. Whether he wants 1 apple, 2 apple, I'm not saying that. I'm not at all bothered about that. What I'm doing, I'm giving equal to everybody. That is the first algorithm called as equal allocation algorithm. So example I've given, think there are n processes and there are m frames. Then division is m by n. Example I've given 5 processes, there are 93 frames. Each process will get 18 frames. Remaining left out will be kept for page tolerance or memory addresses. 3, 4 will be kept for buffer. We call it as free frame buffer pool, because it is required when there is some error in the existing one. We need few frames which is required to allocate an existing algorithm there, or we need to work on that page replacement algorithms. For that, we should make sure at least 1, 2, 3 frames are left out, right? So when we divide that m by n, so each process will get 18 frames. The first concept or the first algorithm is called as equal allocation algorithm, right? The second one is proportional allocation algorithm. So what else? Proportional, right? So now based on the requirement of the processes, based on the requirement of the user, we will divide the process, right? Now I told I have 100 apples, there are 10 students, right? So the first one will do what? Equal allocation, everybody will get 10, 10, 10. In this second one, what I am going to do is I'll see how much that person is required, how much that person is hunger of, whether he can eat 5 apples or he need 4 apples or 3 apples. That is what I'm going to do in the second one, that is proportional allocation. So what is happening? I've given an example now. See here, consider a system with 1 KB frame size. Now one process requires 10 KB size. The second one requires 127 KB. Now I have only 62 free frames. Now I can't do equal allocation here because one process requires only 10 frames or 10 KB of size. The second one requires 127 KB of memory to be executed. For each, if I give 32, 32 or 31, 31, it will be an improper one because A requires only 10 because it requires only few pages to do its work. Whereas B, 127 KB, it requires more number of pages. So in this place, we will use proportional allocation algorithm. Now, what is this? It is very simple. We can call this as size allocation algorithm also, right? So what we are doing here, we are using sum. See, now we are doing what? Sum of two processes is 10 plus 127. So we'll take 137. This we are doing to do how we have to do that allocation. So now next formula you can see frames is approximately equal to A by S into free frames. A is the process, S is the total number of sum, that is size of those processes, that is S is equal to 10 plus 127, which is 137. So now by using the formulas, the first process requires 10. So 10 by 137. 137 is total size of those two processes into 62, which is approximately equal to 4. So the first one will get 4 free frames. Then second one, same formula, 127 by 137 into 62, which is approximately equal to 57, which means the first process A, which is of 10 KB size, will get 4 free frames. Then the second one, B process, which is of 127 KB size, will get 57 free frames. So accordingly, we are doing the free frames allocation. So this is second one, which is proportional allocation or size allocation algorithm. So now when we compare these two, equal allocation and proportional allocation, see, very important, I have written there, in both high priority and low priority process is treated what? Now see, in both equal or proportional, right? They have not considered anywhere high or low priority, right? Now the size is different, priority is different, right? What is that? We will see in the next class. Now in equal allocation or proportional allocation, in both the places it is treated same. So the filling the blanks there, what we have to write is it is same. In both high priority and low priority process is treated same, right? Then now the next concept is global versus local replacement allocation algorithm. So what is this global and local replacement? So when we talk about free frames allocation, what is this global and local? See, the word global tells global, it is for all. Local means restricted. So explanation for global means it allows a process to select replacement frames from the set of all frames. It is from all the frames in the system. Even if it is currently allocated to some other process also, it can take from that. So in this place, we will talk about the priority there, right? Global replacement is a one where it can take the frames from anybody else, even if that is allocated to somebody else, but it should have high priority here, right? So if the priority is more in global replacement, what is happening? If the priority is more, that will be given more priority, and it can be taken the free frames from the low priority ones also, right? So that is what the second point I've written. It means one process can take a frame from another also. That is global. Now, what is local replacement? It allows a process to select frames from only its own set of allocated frames. So it can select only from its allocated one. It can't go apart from that. So that is the major difference, and the word is very clear for you all. global and local replacement. I'll repeat, what is global? It can take the frame from anybody else, even if it is allocated to somebody else also it can take from that, if it is an high priority process. Whereas local, it can't take from anybody else. It can take only from its own branch. It is something like local loop and main loop, global defined and main defined, right? Then what happens? A process can select a replacement from among its own frames or the frames of any lower priority. So now consider one example, right? How what is happening when we talk about high priority process and low priority process, right? In local, what is happening? Number of frames allocated will not change because it will be selected only from the local, that is only from the allocated frame. So it will not change. Whereas global, right? It will increase the number because whatever is allocated will be one number. It has an opportunity to select from other ones also. That is global allocation, right? So that is what next 2 points you can see. Local is a place where number of frames allocated will never change. The global one means number of frames allocated to other process is taken. So obviously it will increase the number of frames. Why? Because simple explanation, as in the initial point, it can take from other process also, right? Now, when we take with other processes, so now global, when global is a place where we take allocation from somebody else. Local, there is no concept like that. So no local, we don't face any problems because it is taking only from inside one. Now it is same thing like Corona example. Corona, if you have a food within yourself, right? You are cooking in your home and you know how you have taken the precautions, right? You have done that. If you eat that, you will not have any problem. Global is something like you have a get-together party, right? Or you have a pool, right? Where you tell all the 10, 15 people to get their tiffin box and you have that. So what is the problem here? The problem with global allocation is, right, we can't control the behavior. We can't control what other people cook, right? They may add some other ingredients which contain some virus there. So it will be a problem there. So that is the basic example which I want to give here is problem with global replacement algorithm is paging behavior. It can't control its page fault, right? When you take from somebody else, the error will be more, right? You don't know that person, right? You're taking from some local person, right? Means low priority process, you are taking something, right? At that time, what will happen, right? The page fault rate will reduce, right? When you take it from inside only, the page fault will never occur only, right? When you take it from outside globally, the page fault rate will come. So that is what problem with global replacement algorithm is. It cannot control its own page fault rate. Why? Because the set of pages in memory of a process depends on the page behavior, but also on the behavior of another process. Your ingredients and other ingredients also are depending, right? You are mixing that in your thing. So it will be a problem there. So this problem won't be there in local. Yes, it will not be there in local. But see, even if this problem is there, many people are going out and buying all the things. Why? Because more usage is global only. Example is that only, right? So even if it is a problem is there, right? Even the lockdown is there, there are few people who are still roaming out, thinking they are strong enough, their behavior, character, everything, or something like, leave it out, right? So that is what I can tell here is, even there is a problem with global replacement algorithm, many people will use this only because it is something like high priority process can take something from the low priority process, right? There is an option of something taking from somebody else. Everybody likes taking from somebody else, right? So that is why global is become more usage, right? Then, so that is what the concept of allocation of frames, right? So in this, what we have discussed, how is this allocation happening? What will happen initially? Then two algorithms, that is equal allocation algorithm and proportional allocation algorithm, and what is global and local allocations. Then the next concept is thrashing. So what is this word thrashing? What is happening here? Right now, see, whenever now low priority process will have some minimum number of allocation. If the low priority process also, right, exhaust, right, then what will happen? What will the high priority process do? High priority process is expecting some free frames from the low priority one, but the low priority process has exhausted all those things. So what should happen here? It should suspend the process execution. or it should stop the execution, because there is no free frame. How it will continue there, right? So when there is no frames available in the system or in the low priority process system, a page fault will occur. When a page fault is occur, what will happen? We will try to take it from somebody else, right? So what is happening now? The concept of swapping in and swapping out of the frames will come there. So that is what the process of swapping in and swapping out is called as thrashing. Means when the process is giving an error, page fault will occur only when there is no free frames or there is no minimum number of frames in the system. Page fault will occur. When page fault will occur, we should replace with some page. Then once we replace with some page, again it will also have a probability of page fault. So it will become again next process. It's something like recursion process. For example, now A process has completed all its free frames. So it will take from free, that is B, which is free. Okay, B will support for some time, then B also will exhaust it. Then B will take from C, then C to D. So it is swapping is taking place, right? So replacement from one page to another is happening. So this I-paging activity is called as thrashing there. So 1 to 1, 1, 1, 1. So you are moving from one, replace from one page to another, another. So it is active because from one page to another, again in that page also we can occur a fault, right? So that is what this high paging activity is called as thrashing. Now, what is the problem? If thrashing happens, what will happen? Thrashing leads to low CPU utilization. So very big problem is when page fault is occurring, right? The CPU utilization will become very problematic there. At this time, what should happen? OS needs to increase degree of multi-programming. Means when there is a problem with the page fault, we should take so many help of some other processes. So you're taking help of other process means you are starting their multi-programming there. One program there was some problem, right? You couldn't solve anything. High priority, low priority, everything gone over. So then you are starting one more program there. Then that program also had some problem. Then you started C program. Then C also had some problem. Then you started D program. So thrashing will lead to what? Increase the degree of multi-programming. What is multi-programming? Means one more process is added to the system, right? So whenever there is a problem with that, thrashing means it is increasing the degree of multi-programming, right? So very strongly definition of thrashing is what? A process is busy in swapping pages in and out. That process is called as thrashing. What is thrashing? It is a process which is busy in swap in and swap out of the pages. So when swap in and swap out are doing means number of processes are getting added to the system. When number of processes are getting added to the system means you are introducing more number of multi-programming, means the degree of multi-programming will become more there, right? So that is what the problem with the thrashing. Now that is what next the concept is causes of thrashing. The first point we have discussed, it causes CPU utilization. If it is too low, means that is what we have to increase degree of multi-programming, right? So this 4 points are again the same thing, right? So you can see the third point, it replaces with the new. Now suppose new process start execution and it need more from frames, it starts faulting and so on, and then swapping. The same explanation what I was giving there. If a new process we have taken, that new process starts the execution and it requires more frame, means page fault occurs. When page fault occurs, what you will do? You will take an help of one more process. Then again that process starts the execution. It required frames. It starts again page fault. So this process is continuing. It will continue means the degree of multi-programming is also continuing there, right? So now any process waits for paging device. So now if a process is waiting for a device or a free frames to allocation, means CPU utilization will decrease there because it is not able to manage with the allocation of the sources which is available. We have to start a new process, means the CPU utilization will decrease. So you can see a figure what I have given here is a thrashing figure, right? CPU utilization on the x-axis, degree of multi-programming, in short form I have written as DOM. On the y-axis, x-axis DOM and y-axis CPU utilization. Now you can see here CPU utilization will become more when the degree of multi-programming is also increasing. But at certain point of time, it will start swap in and swap out. When the degree of multi-programming means the one, for example, now consider 0, we have started the process. The initial process which is free will be utilized by the CPU, means one process is there with minimum number of frames. Now there are 100 frames, for example. I'll be more clear for you people. There are 100 frames. Now 10 frames are used, 20 are used, 30 are used, 40 are used, there is no problem. Once 100 is we have reached the 100 free frames, right? Now this is a place where we have to start one more process, right? So this is a place where page fault occurs, right? So when page fault is occurring means the CPU utilization will come down. So all of a sudden it will come down to 0 there. That is what you can see. Thrashing starts where the degree of multi-program reach its peak value. Once it reaches its peak value, it is gone. We can't do anything. It will thrashing starts where the process of swapping in and swap out will start there. So that is what I have written here. DOM increases, that is degree of multi-programming increases. CPU utilization also increases until a maximum point is reached. If it is increasing more, then the thrashing starts and CPU utilization drops sharply. So now how do we do this problem? How do we avoid the problem of dropping down of CPU utilization? How we do that? We should stop. To increase CPU utilization and stop thrashing, we must decrease the degree of multi-programming. When the processes in the system it decreases, then CPU utilization will become more. More number of process, again the CPU utilization will come down. It is as simple now. You are using your phone. If there are 4 programs, 4 applications you have opened, somehow CPU will manage. There will not be hang or any problem with the system. If there are 8 applications open simultaneously, which is running in the background, then CPU utilization will come down, then system may hang. So what we must do, we must close 1 or 2 applications. That is what we must decrease the degree of multi-programming there. So we must make sure n number of process, more number of process are not using the free frames there. We must make sure at least minimum number of free frames are used. If more are used, CPU drop down, everything will happen. So now, how we stop thrashing, right? One, I told we can decrease the DOM. How do we do that? By using local and global priority replacement algorithm, right? So now, local is the best way. Why? Because local, it will not steal from somebody else, right? It will take only from those processes. It will not start any new process there. Global is something like it will start from the existing full everything, right? All the minimum, all the functions inside the function it will take. Local only in that particular loop it will take. So one way of avoiding is local, right? Because it will not allow to steal process frames from another one, right? And one more option is give how much number of process required for them, right? Provide frames as much as a process need. How much ever it requires, allocate so many number of those frames. How we can do this? We can know that, or we can do that by using a strategy called as working set strategy or locality model. So now what is this locality model is, we should know how much minimum number of frames is required for a process and give so many number of frames to that. That is what usage of frames is. Right. Next point. A locality model states that as process executes, it moves from one locality to another locality. What is locality means? A locality is a set of pages that are actively used together. So pages, locality means it is a pages or a set of pages. Now, what is happening when we start the process, when we execute the process, means from one locality, from one motion to the other motion it is starting. Means, for example, we are in the page 5, right? We have not started anything. If it starts means it moved to the page number 6 or 7 or 8. That is what it is changing the locality of page number 5 to page number 6, right? When the process executes, it changes its locality. Means it moves from one set of pages to another set of pages. That is what locality means. What is locality, right? A process executes. Locality means it is a set of pages. Once a process starts executing, it will move from one set of pages to another set of pages. Or in turn, we can tell a process which is executing, it will move from one locality to another locality, right? Now, how do we, when a function is called, now for example, when a small function is called, means, for example, in C programming, we have one loop, main loop is there. Inside that, we have something called as square root function, right? So when you define a square root function, means you have defined a new locality. Means for that function, there is one page kept, or certain pages are defined for that. That is what the next fourth point, what you can see, when a function is called, right, it defines a new locality, means a new set of pages are defined for that, right? When you say square root function, for this square root function in the main loop, for that square root, there is certain place where its set of pages are kept, means its locality is there, right? Now, when, say for example, we have done all these things, when we exit a function, now square root function we are executing, what will happen? It will leave that locality, means it will go away from that position. For example, now we are starting from 0th page. Okay, 0th page, first process is there, right? I have defined one function A. So what is happening? Function A will take first page. So the locality of function A is page 1. Once the function A is executed, so what will happen? It will leave from page 1 and it will come back to page 0. Means the process leaves its locality when its execution is completed, or it executes, or it leaves the program there. So that is what the fifth point tells. When we exit a function, the process leaves its locality. Now, working set model is based on locality assumption. So what is that? We have to define one working set. What is one working set? I'll tell you next. So we use one parameter, delta parameter, to define the working set window. Means how many number of pages is required for that, or how many number of references is required for that, we will be defining in this working set. I'll be explaining that using the working set model figure. Next, if the pages is active and it is in use, then it will be in working set. So working set is a place where it will store all the memory references of all the pages which are in active mode. Understood? What is working set? Working set is a place where it stores all the memory references of all the pages which are in active mode or which are in usage mode. All those things will be kept in working set. If it is not required, if it is not executing, if it is no longer being used, it will drop from working set. So now example you can see, now consider delta as 10 memory references. So we have 10 memory references, right? The first line 2615777775, all these are page reference table. Now, since the delta required 10 memory references, from starting from 2 to 1, it is 10 memory references, right? So now working set is what here? 2 is one page, 6 is one page, 1 is one page, 5, 7, 5, 1. So working set is what? 1, 2, 5, 7, 5, 6 and 7. So that is working set, means the pages which are in active mode, right? For every page we are giving one page reference, that is 2, 6 is all one page references, right? Now, so you can see here working set of T1 is 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. That is working set. So after some time, we start with working set 2, right? We will leave again 2, 3 frames there, right? I told the second best method to avoid the page fault rate is by having more number of free frames. So we keep 4 to 5 free frames for that page fault. Then we start with the next working state. Now, working state starts from your 3, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. So now we are referencing all 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4 only, right? So working set will become working set of time 2 is 3, 4. If we involve 1, 2 also in this, for example, next one 1, 3 is there, right? So what will become working set of T2? 1, 3, 4. Then after it will go on, it will continue so on, right? So what is working set? The page references which are in active mode. So all those page references will be kept in working set. So again, I'll repeat, working set of time T1 is equal to 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. This is all page memory references of those particular table. So that is the method. How do we avoid that, right? Then, so now this method, whatever we have discussed, the working set strategy method is little clumsy because we can't remember how many memory references it required, how many pages in active mode, how many pages in inactive mode. It will become a little clumsy for us, the users, to remember all those things. That is why we move on to the next method. It is called as page fault frequency, right? So what is this page fault frequency and how this page fault frequency will avoid or prevent thrashing? So we will see that now. See, now thrashing means what? It is when thrashing starts means page fault rate is there. It is very simple, right? So thrashing starts when there is a high page fault rate. So if we control the page fault rate, we can prevent thrashing, right? So what is thrashing? Thrashing means swapping in and swapping out of pages. When we do swapping in and swapping out of pages, when there is a page fault, right? So when there is more page fault means there is more thrashing there. So now if we control this page fault rate, we can prevent the concept of thrashing. So how do we prevent the concept of thrashing? There are two conditions what we have to discuss here. One is upper bound condition and lower bound condition. The words will give you the meaning. When the page rate or when the page fault rate is high, right? When page rate is more, when the page fault rate is more means it requires more number of free frames. When the page fault rate is low means it has more frames. Means it doesn't require any more number of frames or it has more number of frames, right? The concept is that only, right? Upper bound means we have more page fault, means it requires other additional number of frames to manage. When the rate is low, when there is no thrashing means what? We have more number of frames. There is no additional requirement of frames. Hope you're understanding what I'm telling. I'll repeat again. Two conditions. The first one is upper bound and the second one is lower bound. Thrashing will occur when there is a high page fault. Thrashing happen means there is no free frames. Only when there is no free frames, thrashing will occur. So when the page fault rate is high means what? Thrashing is more. Thrashing is more. How do we manage thrashing? We should give more number of frames. That is what the first point. When the page fault rate is high means it requires more number of frames. That is upper bound. Second one. When the page fault rate is low means there is no thrashing. Thrashing is not happening means there are so many number of free frames left out, or at least a minimum number less, at least one or two will be left out there. That is lower bound. So now what we should do, we should take the concept of upper bound and lower bound. We should use the concept of these two and stop, or we should prevent thrashing. How is this possible? That is next. So now you can see a figure, right? The figure is very clear. Page fault frequency, this method, the upper bound limit and the lower bound limit, we use all these things in the method called as page fault frequency. It is called as PFF method. That is page fault frequency method. So what is this? On the x-axis we have given number of frames. On the y-axis we have taken page fault rate. So now you can see the upper bound and lower bound. When the number of frames decreases means the page fault is increasing there, right? So now upper bound, when the page fault increases there, upper bound means if it is reaching the upper bound, what we have to do? We have to increase number of frames, means we should allocate free frames. When it is coming down the lower bound, we should decrease number of frames. So I have given there on the figure, if it is upper bound, increase the number of frames. If it is lower bound, decrease the number of frames. So what is this? If the actual page fault exceeds upper limit, we allocate one more process which has free frames. If it is below the limit, we remove the frame from the process and we allocate to somebody which requires or which is executing the upper limit there. So thus we can directly measure and control the page fault rate. We can see which is requiring more number of frames, which is requiring less number of frames, right? By the concept of upper bound and lower bound, or the concept of upper limit and lower limit. If it is upper limit, increase the number of frames. How can we increase the number of frames? By seeing the process which is taking lower bound, right? From there, take the process and give it to this. So by this, we can avoid the concept of thrashing there, right? So I'll again just repeat this one because this PFF is very important method. So how do we prevent the concept of thrashing? By using a method Working set strategy, one method. Working set strategy is where we give n number of processes, give more number of processes, right? We define here a working set, means where the pages which are in active mode will be kept in working set. The pages which are not in active mode will be dropped down from the working set. So as in the figure, we have explained what is working set, what is working sets of all those models, right? Then working set have a disadvantage because it is clumsy. We can't remember everything, right? So the second method to prevent thrashing is PFF method, that is page fault frequency method. What is this, right? How do we avoid or how do we prevent thrashing? By using the concepts, two bound concepts, that is upper bound or upper limit concept, lower bound or lower limit concept. What is this upper bound and lower bound? When a process is executing, there are free frames allocated for them. When the process is executing, meanwhile, if the page rate, if the fault rate executes or it increases, then the number of free frames will be allocated one by one, one by one. If it reaches the maximum limit of the free frames, thrashing will start. So when thrashing happens, means what we should do? We should take a free frame from somebody else and give it to this person. This is one example or one side. The other side is when you are executing, when a process is executing, right? If it is doing everything perfectly, right? Means there is no error. There are so many free frames. So what we do here, we take out the concept of upper bound and lower bound. We see the high page fault rate and low page fault rate. If it is high page fault rate, we keep that as upper bound limit. If it is low page fault rate, we keep it as lower bound. If it is increasing the upper bound limit, it is understood that thrashing is happening and we required more number of free frames to be allocated to that particular process. If it is coming to the lower bound limit, means thrashing is not happening, right? So if there is some free memory or free frames in this dashboard, from this take this and give it to the person who is requiring more number of frames there. Simple basic example, one more example what I can give is consider process A and process B. Process A is having 10 free memory or 10 free frames. Process B is also having 10 free frames. Now process A started the execution process. It is doing, right? So there is one page fault, one free frame is allocated. There is two, it is allocated. Meanwhile, in this also, process B also, one page fault has happened, one is allocated. Two page also occurred in both the places. 2 frames is allocated so far. Now, in process A, what is happening? It is increasing, right? It is increasing the limit. It might be 8 or 9 or increasing more than 10, right? Whereas process B is at the same state. It is at 2 only, right? So what is happening, right? So now process B, there are again 8 free frames. From that, take that because it's in lower bound limit. Take that free frames and give it to the process A, which is crossing the upper bound. So upper bound and lower bound can be given by the system or can be given by the user also. When we talk about 10, you can keep 8 and 2 as the limits, or 9 and 1 as the limit, or 10 and 0 as the limit. It is left to the user, or if user is not defined, system will automatically default define values will be given there. So this is the concept of PFF method, that is page fault frequency method, where we avoid the thrashing concept, right? Then the last concept for today's class, which will complete 4th module, 1st chapter. Then we have 2 more chapters in 4th module. So now we have seen so far working set and we know what is page fault also. Is there any relationship between the working set and the page fault rates? Yes, there is a direct relationship between the working set and page fault. Working set is a place where there are pages which are in active mode. Page fault means there are errors in the page. So it is direct relationship. So more number of pages, more number of error. If there are more number of active pages, for every active page, you can expect, or it may happen, there will be a error there, right? So that is what working set and page fault rates having direct or direct proportional relationship. So as in the figure you can see here, page fault rate I have kept on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, right? So you can see here as the process executing, so the curve you can see here, from 0 it is starting, right? Then I've drawn one line, that is working set area. So it is a place where page fault is increasing. So once it reaches the maximum bound limit, then it drops down immediately. Means the working set active pages which will be in active mode, right? It will drop down because of high page fault rate. Means when the page fault increases, right, the active pages also will be increasing, right? When it is reaching the maximum limit, both will drop down to 0.